Do you know, it's actually been, how long has it been? It has been 3 weeks since Geeksvana has been live on your screens. And for somebody who is often live several times a week, it's been a bit strange. It's been a bit unsettling. We were very busy with some projects that some of our members have actually found out. And we've got some absolutely fantastic content coming up for you on the channel. But yes, then there was, of course, there were some technical problems with YouTube last week, which delayed a couple of our shows, which is great to see that that's all sorted. But rather than having a glitchy show come to you, or rather as glitchy as I make it anyway, but rather than having a glitchy show come to you, we thought we would actually delay some of those shows and come and see you this week. Now, this evening, we've got something quite exciting, which I've really been looking forward to in terms of having a chat about. Those of you who've been watching the channel have seen our previous video on this new drone launch, and you know my sort of feelings towards it. And really, unless you've been under a rock for those last few weeks, we will by now have noticed that there is a new green drone entering the marketplace under the brand Anzu Robotics. It has been something of an interesting launch and perhaps a little bit controversial in some ways, but not in necessarily the way that you think. The two drone products launched by Anzu, the Raptor and Raptor T, are somewhat recognizable, bearing a striking resemblance to the Mavic 3 Enterprise drone range from DJI. And early shots from FCC filings of the green drone certainly got the industry talking. I think a few of us got a little bit carried away, shall we say. Tonight on Geeksvana Live, we're going to be joined by Randal Warnas, who is the CEO of Anzu Robotics, to discuss their new products and explain how this drone might be one answer to what some have deemed a DJI problem. So this is going to be a really interesting one. If you've got any questions, do let us know in the chat, and we will, of course, pass those across to Randal. So let's bring the man in, shall we? Randal, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I have to explain, and I'm going to put it on the zoom in on you. I'm going to have to explain to the audience that I almost had to cancel the show when you appeared on camera. Due to the shirt. And I would just like to apologise to my UK audience for the fact that we're allowing a Chelsea shirt to be worn live on air this evening, but we didn't really have any control of it.
Look, I just hope that my drone products are more successful than my club in England this year. So for that being said, I'm not ashamed of being a Chelsea fan. It's what brought me into international football. I have European parents, so I think that it's fair that I gravitated toward the beautiful game. But I was living in China in 2010, actually, and my girlfriend at the time said that I couldn't be an Arsenal fan. And so I was at some point after that in Newcastle, and Chelsea played Newcastle, and I went to that match, and that's when I became a Chelsea supporter. And so it's not a lifelong thing, but since 2010, I've been tried and true.
That is, however, a good solid origin story for soccer, for football in the UK, though a team you've actually gone and watched and therefore thought, you know what, I'm going to support these guys, because there is something about when you've been and watched a team, you kind of have that little bond, especially if you're going abroad and you know you're traveling when you see them as well. There is that special link. So it's good to hear that you've got a genuine origin story. And in fact, you've probably been far more, one time to see Chelsea is still many more times than most Man United supporters. Oh, I've just turned half my audience off. Yes, they've all left. I apologize to all Man U fans.
When you're an American, in the first match you see Drogba and at the time Fernando Torres, which he was great at that period of time.
Yeah.
You know, when that's what you're exposed to, Juan Mata, and later on like Oscar, and it was just that's what turned me to Chelsea football. So I don't have a lot of the stereotypes of who the supporters are in England. I don't have the history, or I don't care where the money is spent. It was just the team that I gravitated towards.
Yeah,
I like smaller clubs as well.
Yeah, it's a good team. It's good to see it's a London team, especially. Of course, you know I have that bias, being in the southeast myself. But yes, you know it's an interesting topic that brings you here this evening. Obviously, you've been on the channel before. We've had a chat before. During one of your previous roles, you were, of course, famously scheduled to appear the same day that you left Otel. So you've had an exciting career and certainly one which you have managed to prompt the headlines in the industry quite a few times, which obviously, you know, it isn't a bad thing from the point of view of getting the headlines and getting the column inches and having people talking about you. So congratulations on the fantastic launch of Anzu Robotics. I think that it's been handled very well, and I think it's a really exciting thing. Could you tell us a little bit about who Anzu Robotics are and what it actually is as a business?
Yeah, definitely. So like you had mentioned, I've been in the space for now 10 years, and during that time I spent a good portion of that at DJI, at FLIR, and very briefly as the CEO of Anzu Robotics. I have been paying attention for these 10 years, and I've worked with hundreds of thousands of drone users to understand how they fit within the industrial and public safety space. And what has happened with the geopolitics around drones over the last, let's say, 4 years has been really daunting to see that we've no longer left folks with a choice for affordable and mass-produced drone technology that has all the features that you're looking for. Again, that is not astronomically priced. And so an opportunity came up to license technology from the world-leading manufacturer and manufacture in a way that allows us to change the conversation about where that technology is built. So we manufacture the equivalents of Mavic 3 Enterprise and Mavic 3 thermal drones in Malaysia, sourcing a lot of parts from Malaysia, and then some of it is still coming out of China, but because that's just the reality of things.
Of course.
So we manufacture in Malaysia, and we take those products to now the U.S. and Canada. We have a U.S. software partner in Aloft, which has put this software together, as well as put the cyber or data security wrapper around all of the data collection. So, and then it goes to US servers. So anything that has been kind of touted as a reason for avoiding these drones, whether it's country of origin or whether the ownership was Chinese, or whether the servers were where those servers were located, we've kind of went through the process of addressing most of those things. I didn't say all of those things because we're still not trying to be everything to everyone, especially out of the gate. So for US users, NDAA compliance means that certain components can't come from covered countries, China being a covered country. We have not pulled all of those components out because it would have taken us probably another year or more to get to this point of launching. We're not green UAS, we're not blue UAS. What we are is a non-Chinese manufactured drone with US ownership, US servers, US software, and you know, I think that gets us pretty far down the road, but there's more to come.
So it is essentially, there is a particular type of drone customer out there, enterprise drone user, that is going to be looking at this product and thinking, actually, yeah, that ticks the boxes. And as you say, it isn't necessarily going to be people that need the sort of military level of approvals and that kind of thing, or even necessarily federal, but it is those that want the reliable tech, because this obviously at heart is going to be as reliable as a DJI enterprise drone in terms of the actual hardware itself. But then, of course, as you're saying, the data is actually handled completely within the US, and you've just had the penetration testing data back on that, haven't you?
Yeah, correct. So it is Thursday, May 9th. As of Thursday, May 9th, we just got notice that everything with the penetration test went as expected for us, which is a positive thing. We're still going to be waiting up to another week before we have the publishable form of that, where it's going to show what they tested and you know how deep they dug. But at this point, we feel confident that all the endpoints of data go to the place they're supposed to go. They all go to AWS servers, and that there was no, in their efforts, there was no way to take data from the drone, whether in air or at rest, that data stayed secure. We feel really good that going into it, we felt really good about that, but we got the results back today, or at least the information that we passed that test.
Okay, so which is fantastic. Congratulations for that next milestone, because I think for a small tech company, these are These are large milestones because not that you don't know what's going to happen, of course, as you know your products, but you just until these things are actually in writing, until these things happen, it's just a bit of a stress. So congratulations on that particular milestone. So we are talking about here essentially from the data side of things, and really from the product type of things. This is not a DJI drone in any way, shape, or form. Then, so what happens regarding things like updates and that type of thing? Are the updates themselves on your servers rather than DJI servers, or is it? I mean, it's similar to the other company, Cogito. You can actually see their name on the DJI update servers, etc. In terms of the firmware versions and that type of thing. Is this completely separated then?
Yeah, so a lot to say to make sure that there's clarity. So when you say that this is not DJI in any way, shape, or form, correct. As a business, this has nothing to do with DJI. This is not owned by DJI. This is not funded by DJI. There was a licensing agreement, which is a transactional thing that happens in business all the time. And basically the recipe to build that drone was transferred over to Anzu to build those drones. There's no joint venture or anything like that. This isn't DJI, having me do the facing of a US based company. I've been down the road of working for a Chinese company that expected that sort of thing from me, and that was well documented in how that went. So I'll leave it at that. So as far as the software and firmware, so when we did this licensing agreement, DJI gave us a firmware as a snapshot in time, and basically we take that firmware and we put it on Aloft AWS servers, so that now could be modified and altered, and there's no interaction from any third parties, including the licensing organization. And then we also got an SDK version, same thing, snapshot in time on those servers, and that's how we developed the app around it. So any sort of firmware update, so let's imagine that DJI put out something, cool but minutely impactful to the overall experience, we would have an option to take that firmware, take it to the US, do all the things that we've done to it, redo the penetration test, and then kick it out to the world.
Okay.
We would have that option, but it would have to be probably something quite large or safety related that would push us to do that. The technology that our drones are based off of is now almost, a year and a half, 2 years old. So we're not anticipating any major changes on the firmware. So instead, everything that will come from Anzu will be software updated, pushed through the app, where it'll just maybe add more features to that software over time. But those are all Anzu controlled it would be
Excellent.
an update from Anzu. And we're not forcing any of those updates unless they were absolutely critical related to safety. So it's just an option if you want to have more things to do, you can update the app.
That's really that to me is actually quite fascinating, because it does show that separation. This isn't going to be a DJI push out an enterprise update and sure enough that day it's also showing on the Anzu drone. This is a completely separate ecosystem, which I think when you look at the website, which I will just pull up very quickly, and we go on to the software page side of things, it does actually show there that obviously it is a very different type of system. And so this in terms of the app itself, is this a completely new app that Aloft have designed, the air control app, or is this something which they've evolved from one of their existing products?
So this is you're asking a very important question that's really has been a challenge to articulate and definitely is not reflected well on our website at this point. So when you open up or when you turn on the RC for the Anzu Robotics drones, it's going to first pop up Anzu Robotics. Then you're going to get to screens that look like the ones you're showing, which is Aloft kind of bookends. The Aloft bookend at the beginning is going to be a lot of like weather, airspace maps. You could do land authorizations in the U.S., which allows you to utilize national airspace legally. Those sorts of compliance things are Aloft. And it's not new, but they've basically translated their existing air control stuff into our app that flies the Anzu products. There's also pre-flight checklists that are completely customizable. So if your organization is saying, we want you to do these things before you take off, it's all about safety and compliance. But once you go into flying the drone, it is going to be very, very familiar. It's all built from SDK. We've added a few things, but it's going to be a familiar experience. That's that's an old photo of it, but we've done updates since then, as we would do. But yeah, the flight experience is going to be very familiar. Then when you are done with your flight, as long as if you're in the air control logged in version, then there will be post-flight checklists and other compliance things. So again, the aloft pieces that feel different are going to be bookends at the beginning and at the end of flight. Otherwise, it's going to be your usual flight experience with the same kind of user interface.
I mean, the work that this must have taken to bring all this together, and obviously Aloft have really come to the plate with their A game on this one, because it's this is quite a project to take what is an existing a trusted product as such in terms of the actual tech, in terms of the hardware, and turning it into something as almost as specialized as this. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Frankly, it must have been a daunting job to do, because obviously you haven't got the big shiny office with 400 people all sort of waking up every morning in at 8 a.m. Okay, Randall, which direction do you want us to go in? This is a small startup company, and that's an awful lot of work. It's a lot of organization for you to get in quite a short time. How long have you been working on this?
So this has been 15 months since conception to now. There has been, it hasn't been a linear path. It's had its ups and downs, and we've evolved as an organization. We've evolved as a concept over that period of time, and even leading up to the month before launching this product, the evolution continues. I thought I was busy before launch, but since launch, I barely. I look at myself, and I don't like to look at myself in videos like this, because I'm like, I look so tired and I look so old and I just feel beat up, and it's all for the love of like this opportunity. I have spent 10 years making connections, trying to do the best I can to serve the drone users in the industrial and public safety space. And I've been frustrated by, how things have changed. And I also took a big swing with a big manufacturer, to try to lead that organization. And I thought I was going to make a big impact on the drone space by trying to do something like this with that organization. And so the last 3 years since then have been quite depressing, to try to reinvent who I was and to find a place that knows how to use what I am, and to knows how to consume the relationships, the contacts, the things that I have built up. And it really takes a product at this level, the quality of product, and the who it's purposed for me to really unleash who I believe I am and who I believe I was meant to be. I don't fancy myself anything special, but I do feel like I've done things for the right reasons. I have been in privileged places to hear the challenges, to see the challenges. I met 5 different manufacturers before this experience in the drone space. I've been down a road that there's not really another replicable lineage, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
but that's always been one of the attractions, in terms of, so many of us within the drone industry, in terms of why we've liked you so much over these years, and those of us that got to know with you from the OTEL forward, and those that have known you for years before that, etc. I think it is just that very different approach is something that I think so many people want to see succeed. And when this kind of project comes up, you think, okay, yeah, this is a Randall project. This is the kind of thing that I could really see you moving forward with, which is very exciting. One question from the chat is, will the green is the green here to stay, and was there a particular reason for the green?
Yeah. So
on these particular products,
the decision on color was made many months ago, during the process of getting manufacturing set up. And so when we were looking at plastic molding options from where we were sourcing it from, it's not like it was going into your hardware store and looking at paint swatches. It was kind of like, here's a red, here's a gray, here's a blue, here's a green. And the green was kind of like, yeah, it's unique. It kind of has like a flair to it. Green is my favorite color, so it kind of just like worked out in that way. But when it became a physical object, cover it's kind of like if you hold a paint swatch and then you put it on your wall in your house, you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't exactly the color. That green was surprising to us as we first saw these units, but it kind of has become our identity.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was almost part of the sort of viral nature of the product, wasn't it? Really, and I suppose it's also good to have such a differential from the other product that it obviously resembles from the DJI product. So I suppose that helps as well, really. Now, in terms of where this drone is going to be available from. Obviously, this is an enterprise drone, so this isn't a pop down to Best Buy type of thing. There are all sorts of support things behind it, etc. People like Drone Nerds are going to be dealers for you in the US, because it's going to be a US launch primarily first, isn't it?
Yeah. So one thing that I felt is very important since the beginning of my journey in the drone space is how important the drone reseller network is. I was one of the first DJI dealers in the world, based in Las Vegas, Nevada. We started the first brick and mortar drone store, and that really is how my drone journey started in June of 2014. But I've always leaned on the drone reseller network, and so all the Anzu stuff will be sold by resellers. Nothing is going to be sold on AnzuRobotics.com. Nothing is going to be sold from me directly to the end user, because I feel like localized support is so important. Having those folks be the kind of force multiplier, as we are a very small business at this point, we wanted to keep them involved. Those folks that eat, sleep, and breathe drones, and they can't take care of their families or their employees unless they get drones in people's hands. That's a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as we launched, we figured we wanted to make sure that we had some stable ground before we moved internationally. And I think that as you are on the other side of the ocean, it's important for me to state kind of what that timeline looks like. So the US and Canada open for Anzu stuff now, but as we get traction and as we have everything in order here with stock and kind of understanding what the demand is, of course our intention is to be an international company to serve places that have these same country of origin concerns and these same challenges when it comes to geopolitics around drones. It will likely be several months before we get to that point. In the UK, if we're talking about the UK specifically, it's likely several months away, just because we do want to be a company that has good support, has good service, and has stock and can fuel or feed the demand. And for us to move into other markets, now we're splitting shipments, now we're setting up separate service centers, and that's all a ton of work. And so what we wanted to do is make sure this concept works. So far, I would say from the buzz and the demand and the inbound, it worked thus far.
I think
we have to get drones in people's hands and see what that response looks like. And then we'll be in a better place to make those decisions. So it's coming. I don't think that there's a reason to think that we will be US centric forever. But right now it's just where the hypothesis started is, can we make a difference here in the US? And then Canada is just an extension of that.
Excellent. Yeah, a really good expression. We've actually got Ross from Edinburgh Drone Company is in the chat, and I think he would be one of the people. He's actually put his little hand up there and said UK reseller.
For sure.
To have resellers internationally already putting their hands up to say, hey, we'd love to have a go at this. I think it just shows that there is a demand there, which is fantastic.
I don't want to say that I have had to, use any sticks to beat people away from this project internationally, but there is significant demand internationally. I think that that's to say that the the geopolitics that are happening in the US against China, like I will be the first to say I don't agree with this. I don't agree in the way that DJI is seen as some enemy. I was a former employee of DJI. I left DJI because it wasn't necessarily the place I wanted to be long term for many reasons, but technologically there's none better. And the people that are there have good intentions up to the top of the organization. Aspirations to be large as an organization, aspirations to be the next Apple or the next Microsoft, those aren't bad things. And it doesn't matter whether those aspirations come from a place where people look like you, sound like you, speak like you, etc. Happens to be that innovative guy that started DJI was in a Hong Kong university and believed in himself and believed in what he did and grew things to what it is now. I can tell you that running a drone company that gets like probably 1,000th of the inbound demand and criticism that DJI gets, it is a tough deal to have people gunning for you and have people saying things that are not true. Now, Chinese business culture, typically, and I don't want to say as a definite, but typically they believe that saying nothing is better than saying something, and when there's shade thrown, ignoring it is better than feeding into it. That is one reason that I am so public with everything I do, is that I feel like that is a mistake, especially for Western folks that are just like, just come out and say it, just put your name behind it, just stand up for yourself. And I feel like DJI has become this company that
it is a really, because of course there is so much going, to say obviously it is geopolitics, to say there is so much going on and so many layers to it, it is just incredible. But it is an important distinction to make from the point of view of having a business idea that deals with a problem, as I call it in my thumbnail, the sort of the DJI problem, right, that some people are experiencing, and necessarily buying into all of that rhetoric is of course a completely different thing. And I think it's only because you have that open outlook that obviously companies are choosing to work with you in a way that I think a lot of people, I know for a absolute fact, there will how many companies that are that would believe they're further up the pecking order will be absolutely furious at this particular licensing deal. I think it's fantastic. A couple of questions on the practicality side of things. There is these drones are manufactured in Malaysia, and we've noticed that actually on the DJI side of things, there's also some Malaysian products being that have been produced. Some people's RC controllers and that type of thing. If you look on the back, it actually says made in Malaysia, not made in China. Is this, are they being produced at a DJI factory in Malaysia, or is it a completely separate entity there as well?
So the manufacturing facility is completely separate. However, when we're looking to set up manufacturing somewhere, it's good to go to a place where there's already some level of sourcing and understanding of where components can be sourced, as well as the trade relationship between Malaysia and the United States is very favorable for a manufacturer doing what we're doing. So to be in Southeast Asia and to be looking at places that could handle the capacity, handle the needs of what we were trying to accomplish, Malaysia made sense. The fact that DJI is also there, it made things make more sense for us, but it also makes sense for any manufacturer to put manufacturing in Malaysia for drones. So it's not unique to us.
And it's also not as if you're hiding the DJI connection either. It's not as if you put another shell on it and someone's picked it apart and found a logo. These are DJI hardware licensed through. So there is right, obviously a connection there, but of course it's the security data side of things that is the big part here. And in terms of because you were talking about in terms of the issues in growth, which I look forward to you having those issues and having to grow European arms, etc. What's happening regarding servicing and repairs and that type of thing? Will that be handled in-house, or is that under a agreement with DJI or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna mix an answer of that question to someone in the chat asking why Anzu drones are more expensive.
Excellent, thank you.
And I think that it should be self-explanatory, but economies of scale are a thing, right? So first of all, the more that you manufacture, the lower the pricing can be. So we're not manufacturing nearly at the scale of the largest manufacturer of drones in the world. At the same time, the labor for the manufacturing is being done in Malaysia and not in China, which the labor differential is significant. Some of the components are sourced differently, so that's also a reason why there is a price difference. And then all the work that has gone into translating a software from one side of the world to the US, putting on US servers. Now you have a lot more expensive things happening behind the scenes. So whether somebody looks at the difference of price tag, which I would say is negligible for all that we're resolving and all that we're putting out. That's if you can buy Chinese stuff.
Yeah, indeed. I've often looked at it because people obviously always talk about, why doesn't one of the large American companies just design and build a mini drone for the consumer market, etc. And right. I've often said to people there, okay, take a product like a Chinese mass market car, which some of those are very, very cheap in terms of their retail price, etc. Take that exact car and build it in Europe or build it in the United States. It's not going to be that price anymore for all sorts of reasons. And as you say, economies of scale has to be one of those as well. And this isn't a product which is looking to take over the world in terms of, the next product is going to be the Mini 4 Pro aimed at consumers. This is a specialized enterprise drone, which is answering a specific question. And actually, the feedback I'm getting so far is that in those areas, it's not the budget isn't a problem, but the problem is more the problem than necessarily just the budget. We are talking about people that would perhaps like to buy DJI Mavic 3 enterprise drones, but they, for whatever reason, policy or more serious than that, they're unable to. So it is a very specific marketplace that you're in.
Yeah, correct. And to your question about servicing, so we have every intention and aspiration to have a large team that is pushing, as we're pushing out more units, we have a large team to support those units. But in the near term, we're going to be leveraging the reseller network that has been servicing and supporting drone users for a long period of time. So once we start shipping, our support number will go live and we will have support happening, but how soon that will be in-house is TBD, but we still expect high levels of support as we get off the ground.
Which I suppose there's an advantage there from the point of view of using the existing dealer network, because of course the people that already deal with those dealers have that trust there with them, and so those dealers are going to be able to say, well, yeah, this is how we're going to handle this is how we're going to handle that, etc. So there's a bit more of a timeline in terms of dealing with those people on a month-to-month basis with these things. So that's really interesting. Certainly here in the UK, we've got large suppliers like Heligai, etc. Well, actually, even the DJI enterprise drones, if there's a problem there, it will go to them. It wouldn't go anywhere else. It wouldn't get sent back to manufacturer necessarily. So no, it's an interesting one, and it is going to be fascinating to see the challenges ahead for you. And I can only imagine, because obviously, with the challenges you've had in the launch and now the challenges with just dealing with the level of interest, and dealing with that correctly, which it sounds like you are doing. It's going to be fascinating to see what comes next for Anzu Robotics. And is that something that you're already thinking about? I mean, surely with such a major launch, this has to be the day and night for you guys at the moment. But is there any kind of hint of, will we see perhaps an OTEL license or something else happening, etc.?
Yeah, so lots of things to say to that. I do want to, again, I'm going to mash, you took away the questions, but I'm going to mash or mix my answer to also resolve some of the questions that came into the chat, which is somebody said, stick with DJI, it's cheaper or better. Yeah, if you could buy Chinese drones, buy Chinese drones. If there's no preclusion for you to buy DJI drones, buy DJI drones. The problem is that in many places, especially in the United States, especially if you're public safety, you are being precluded from buying Chinese manufactured drones. That is why I'm stepping in to solve that problem. I'm not trying to pull people away necessarily. I think if you like the color green, cool. If you like me, cool. If you just feel more comfortable having a US owned company that you're flying, cool. But if you can buy Chinese manufactured drones, don't stop doing that. There's no reason to pay more to have a smaller organization, to be dealing with our growing pains. So yeah, I agree, and I'm not trying to be everything for everyone. I'm trying to solve a real problem for many, 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 and if I could keep saying many and take the rest of the hour, many people have this issue in their state, in their jurisdiction, in this country, and in countries around the world, where they are not able to fly that drone or fly DJI drones. So I'm trying to resolve that. Someone asked if there's geofencing. No, there's no geofencing. But I do want to get to your question, which is what's kind of next. We are a 3-week-old company, which I think is, it's fair for me to say, I just got to get these 2 products to the market, start shipping them, and see where that takes us. But of course, we're looking at what other things could be on the table. We get a lot of feedback of what people want to see. I can tell you almost certainly that anything that is kind of the DJI consumer line will not come from Anzu. Cogito or Cogito, however you said it,
Yes.
however I say it, they likely have the same agreement with DJI that we have for enterprise stuff, and they're probably going to be the ones to do that. I don't necessarily want to be in the business of selling 1 million of something and having 1 million customers that have 1 million questions. Like, that's not my goal, my aspiration. I'm solving a problem for, we can't fly Chinese drones and there's a search and rescue mission that's happening, or there's a fire, or there's, we need to inspect our utilities. That's what I'm trying to solve. It's much more manageable. It's a different kind of user, and it's what I know.
Absolutely.
So I don't think we'll go down the chain. Larger drones, more complex payloads certainly are on the table. And as a company, we've basically built the blueprint of how you take a Chinese robotic technology and manufacture it in a different place and change up the software. So, ground robots, sea-based robotics, VTOLs, fixed wings, like we could do any of those things. I just feel like we got to take this big bite first before we, start on dessert.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned, I guess.
Anzu could even become a problem solver in that sector. And again, I had this conversation with somebody just yesterday, actually, when they were talking about where do I think they'll go, and I said, well, it's obviously it's impossible, because in 3 years' time, Anzu Robotics could have 3 divisions worldwide and be selling these units, more of these units than they can possibly produce, or they could be a niche US company still in 3 years' time. It's there are so many factors there, aren't there? There are so many factors in terms of where this type of innovation goes. But it is identifying a niche, identifying there is a pot of cash in that niche that cannot use DJI products. And somebody needs to go and help solve that problem and have people fly those drones and get those jobs done. But obviously take that cash. So to me, I've never really had the issue with why and that I think perhaps some people have had. So yes, Lauren is saying that he has seen a Canadian dealer already talking about listing the drone, right. And Yellow Rose Drones has said he's told his new drone company employer about Anzu. They're doing power line inspections. So I think there is a very solid marketplace there for these products, and it is going to be really interesting to see where they go and to see how they're accepted. And I think even on the geopolitical side, you've still got some challenges there, etc. And how a company that has licensed the Chinese products, etc., how the challenges you're going to face. Because as you say, in the rhetoric, the anti-DJI, anti-Chinese product rhetoric is strong, and I think there are some people that are probably going to just have a base issue with this kind of thing as well. We've of course seen the stories of, this is to get round the ban that obviously isn't in place as such yet. So it's going to be an interesting one to see for sure. You'll obviously have to come back and keep us fully informed of how things are going.
Yeah, well, if you make that request, I will be here anytime, any day for you, my friend, because
Thank
I
you,
will say
sir.
that the video that you did for the Anzu launch was so professional. I was so proud to be on this side of it and see the way that you articulated things. And it's not like we set up a script together and I edited it. You just said so many things that were so meaningful for me to hear that someone gets it.
Yeah,
So I
thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you. It,
I
it,
think
it,
so
it,
much.
it was a bit of a perfect storm. Sorry to interrupt you, but it was a bit of a perfect
Big time.
storm because of obviously your sort of background, the fact that we've chatted before, etc. The fact the product made so much sense to me. Perhaps to other journalists, it hasn't, etc. But it was a perfect storm in terms of the right product, the right company, and then you as the figurehead that I personally trust. So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I think that part of, not even part of, the largest challenge I have as an organization and what I'm trying to do is that piece of understanding of what I'm trying to accomplish. If someone says, I'm trying to be a front for a Chinese company, impossible. I'm, just working to, give Chinese, inroads and filling my pockets. Like that's not anyone that knows me personally knows that this is not a money driven thing. Yeah, I need to make money. I have 2 kids. I take care of my family, all of those things. We all show up to work. And you mentioned like a pot of cash, and it's like that feels so like I'm not trying to be opportunistic. I've been sticking through this when there was little money or money was hard to come by. The COVID years were not good for anyone in the drone manufacturing space. So like I've taken my lumps. This isn't about money. Yes, there's money transacted. That's business, and blame the world for capitalism, but I truly want people to understand that I am not trying to make a drone for everyone. This is not a military drone. This is not going to have loitering munitions. This is not going to be under all the scrutinies of where things came from, because at the end of the day, we're licensing a technology from the best drone manufacturer in the world, the largest drone manufacturer in the world, and the one that most people want to fly. But if you don't like DJI or you don't like what we're putting out, that's okay. Like, I'm not trying to build something for everyone. I'm not trying to go down the consumer line. I'm trying to solve a specific problem and doing the best I can to solve that with the parameters that, of time and space and resources to solve those problems. And I think that if I can get that understanding across, whether it is legislators, lawmakers, business owners, the drone service providers, anyone that hears this story, if I could get it across that the intention is to keep an avenue to take where your drones are not 3, 4 times more expensive just because of some legislation that determined that if your drone says country of origin China, that you can't use it. That's an unfortunate story, and I'm just trying to solve that. Um, the understanding kind of seems like it's lost when questions are like, why the name Anzu? Why the color green? What like none of that mattered to me. What mattered to me is getting to market a product that could put some sense into how we continue
mm,
to to foster the ecosystem of drone users, drone software developers, because if there is some sort of ban on Chinese manufactured drones, and it doesn't just impact DJI, this impacts Autel and others, there's a big problem.
yeah,
There's a big void. And I was set. I had the relationships and the resources to fill that void in a way that not really anyone else could with the best technology in the world. And so anyone that is critical or confused or doesn't like what they're seeing, like I ask you, reach out to me personally. Let's have a conversation about that, because I would say that I am one of you. I've been in this space taking lumps for 10 years. I am not someone that just dropped in when there was money involved. I was early on investing myself into this, into users, being everywhere around the world to meet with people that are flying drones. And so I'm just hoping that we can that as an organization, we can win people over to understand that this can be whatever the world needs it to be, as long as we have the right inputs and as long as there's justification of why we would make the decisions that we'd make from a business standpoint.
Exactly. No, thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. And as I say, good luck with the sleepless nights. You're probably having as many, if not more, sleepless nights than a newborn child at the moment. And I can only imagine fielding inquiries from all over the world demanding answers. So again, I appreciate in terms of how open you are. We very rarely have this kind of show on this particular channel anymore. We don't really have the interviewee type, the manufacturer, the drone services people on, mainly because this is no disrespect to anybody that's been on before, but it's very hard to get answers that people can actually stand by, if that makes sense. But I knew from knowing you that we ask you a question. I mean, you've even been answering stuff directly from the chat tonight as well, that it's there. There is actually, can people access the Q&A and the Q&A answers and the webinar, etc., still from the original launcher? Is that
definitely. So as far as resources on Anzu goes, if you go to anzurobotics.com, under the about, I think it's under the about, or it might be standalone. Hold on one second. If you go to the menu and you go to the FAQ, I'm like really proud of our FAQ because I wrote it all. Go up, go up, go up. Yep. This FAQ answers some of the questions that it's like, you know, why is it green? That's in there because it's what I have frequently been asked. So a lot of the things that people are asking me ad nauseum, they're in there.
I love that.
And so you could really get to know who we are and what we're about by just going through that Q&A. It's not most of the stuff is not simple questions like what is the lens or the, what is the resolution of the thermal sensor? That's all specs. This is like trying to answer the questions that have been brought up so that you have a resource for that. If you're interested in Anzu Robotics, go through that FAQ and just understand who we are better. Also, you asked about the Q&A from the webinar. If you go to the blog section, there is a blog that is just that Q&A. So go to all the way to the right that says latest posts. Yep, up.
Oh, there it is.
So
excellent.
I'm the CEO of a company, and I do pride myself on being responsive and being like getting in there. These were all the questions from the webinar, and I went through and typed out answers to every single question that somebody asked and published it, and as well emailed it to all the attendees. And I think that, again, I'm trying to do things the right way. It's a huge amount of work.
Yeah,
it's
that's a lot of info for 3 weeks, isn't it? That's a huge Q&A and a lot of blogging.
I have a 3.5-year-old and a 1-year-old and a wife and things I need to attend to. But this is become what I do all the time and what I think about all the time. And I do lose sleep because I'm trying to do the right things. And, you know, sometimes you get criticism that just like does get under your skin. And I wasn't like built to be a CEO. I'm from like a very lower middle class place, blue collar parents. Like, it's not like I was trained to be this guy. So there are things that it's hard when people don't understand or when you're worried about, you know, what shots are going to be fired.
But isn't there a thing about politicians should be people who didn't want to be politicians? So I think sometimes that's the case with CEOs as well, though. I think, you know, people who don't see themselves as CEOs often make the best CEOs. But there we go. But excellent. Well, as I say, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. And AnzuRobotics.com, lots of information. If the information's not there, just reach out as well. Again, you're not going to be put behind a screen of call centers, etc. You know, you're going to get straight through to the guys that can actually answer the questions. But as I say, thank you so much for joining us. And good luck with things.
Appreciate you, Sean. Thanks for everyone joining. And if you have questions, reach out to me anytime.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
All right, see you guys.
See you next time on Geeksvana Live. Thanks, guys.